Okay, my captive audience. Do you love school uniforms? Love the idea of them? Wish your child wore them? Are you all for them? Could you care less what your child wears to school? Does it not matter to you? Are you completely against them and want nothing to do with them? If you answered yes to any of these above questions, you are not alone in America. In fact, this is a large debate going on in the schools today, whether they should switch to school uniforms or stick with what they already have. This is what we're going to talk about tonight in my speech. Back in the 1980s, when you thought of school uniforms, you traditionally thought those are private Catholic school kids. And that was true back then. But today, this is not true. Because in the 21st century, more and more schools are having to switch to uniforms because they feel that it looks more sleek and that in uniform, and that is a better way for their students to learn. According to debate.org, when polled, 30% of people said yes, they would love to have school uniforms in their schools for their children. They even said, quote, individuals attend school to learn, not to make it a fashion show, end quote. But the other 70% of people said no to uniforms. They don't believe in them and they wish they were never even thought of. They said, quote, uniforms keep people from expressing who they are. They take their voice away, and it is more comfy for students not to wear them, end quote. Back in the day, this was not an issue or a problem. Now students feel they can dress however and in whatever, and that is causing this debate. Schools are being forced to start the process of shifting to uniforms because the students are starting to dress more and more provocatively and in less clothing. I found an article on NewYorkTimes.com that interviewed a dad of a student who wore uniforms in the past and now doesn't because of a school change, changing from middle school to high school. Mark Pazer said, when asked about his son's baggy clothes, that, quote, they don't look good, but I have to learn to live with them, end quote. He didn't want his child wearing that, but he had no choice. Some parents agree that uniforms look better on children in schools. An article on NBCNewsWashington.com talks about how one school in Rockville, Maryland, sent a girl home because her outfit and gave her the option of wearing an oversized sweatshirt or just going home and changing. She was wearing leggings and a baggy shirt that day. The dress code in that school states that, quote, students should dress appropriately for a school setting and business environment. The staff wishes to promote a climate where all students feel comfortable, end quote. The main reason for this dress code is that the administration in this school feels that they need to make it an even playing field in the school so that students feel that they don't have to compete with what the other students are wearing. Another article on BuffaloNews.com about this school uniform debate asked students what they thought about the dress codes in their schools. One student said that it interrupted class time when teachers had to send the students to the office because of what they were wearing. If school uniforms were involved in these schools, this would not be an issue and class time would not be interrupted. The cause of these issues stated in the previous articles is that students nowadays believe that anything goes. They can wear whatever, they can do whatever, and that just cannot be the case. They can show up to school dressed in whatever and feel that it is okay. One solution that comes to mind is an idea to let the students wear whatever or have a choice of what they are wearing, but within certain boundaries. For example, one school here in Omaha has a dress code where the students must wear a polo or collared shirt, but it can be whatever color the students choose and have whatever patterns on it. I don't believe that all schools need to switch to something this strict, but I do feel that they could find an excellent balance between strict and easygoing. There are obviously disadvantages and advantages to both sides. Some advantages to uniforms is that the students could sleep in longer in the mornings and not worry about having to pick out their outfits, which could be a plus for some students. It looks more sharp and sleek. It is not distracting for any other student, and no one has felt that they had better or worse clothing than someone else. It's not about a competition when you wear uniforms because all the students look the same and they're all wearing the same skirts and polos. Obviously, there are also disadvantages. Some examples are that uniforms are not as comfortable. They're more stiff, not as comfy as, sweatshirts and sweatpants that students are wearing. And it does not show individuality between students because they're all wearing the same thing. According to greatschools.org, there are many proponents to why schools need uniforms. Some examples of this are that uniforms help prevent gangs from forming, they encourage discipline, they help students resist peer pressure to buy trendy clothes and to fit in, they diminish economic and social barriers between students, they help identify intruders in schools, and they improve attendance. They're proven to show that students feel the need to show up to school when they wear uniforms. And with the identifying intruders in schools, this is also a big issue today in America about intruders entering schools, and this would help because they could identify what this intruder is wearing. The opponent's arguments against these, of course, is that, quote, they violate a student's freedom of expression, end quote. A solution to this is that students, they all wear different shoes. They can all pick out whatever shoes they want to wear and whatever headbands they want to wear. They can express themselves through hair and nails and shoes and book covers and pencil cases and socks. Another argument is that they are, quote, a financial burden on poor families. Families argue that it is an added expense for parents who pay taxes for free public education, end quote. A solution I thought of for this is that schools could have a uniform drive or a hand-me-down program where a student that is capable of buying a bigger uniform could buy it and then hand their old one down to someone that fits, or they could have a drive to give out the uniforms. More arguments are that these uniforms make students a target for bullies from other schools. But if all other schools have a uniform policy or some sort of way to have the students dressed more appropriately, this would not be an issue and bullying could potentially be stopped about this. Another argument is that they are difficult to enforce in public schools and are simply a band-aid on school violence. Any little halt to violence is always welcomed, and this so-called band-aid could possibly help the end of violence in schools. And if it's hard to enforce in public schools, that's the administration's doing. They need to stay strict with their rules. During President Clinton's 1996 State of the Union speech, he even touched on why uniforms are a good idea in America's schools today. He stated, quote, "If it means teenagers will stop killing each other over designer jackets, then our public schools should be able to require their students to wear school uniforms," end quote. He believed that parents should stick behind him in this decision to navigate students in the right direction. I believe that if schools are going to choose to not require uniforms, then they need to start having a more strict dress code and maybe even more harsh punishments so students know not to go against this dress code. In conclusion, I believe that schools should start enforcing uniforms because they help promote unity, reduce competition, and verbal arguments, which could lead to worse things, and they are a good way to identify intruders in schools, which is a good thing. Thank you for your time.